Hello, everyone. What a delight it is to be here today with all of you. It is, of course, a shame to not be in the same room, to feel everyone's enthusiasm and energy and hope, but we are going to make the best of what we have. For those of you who don't know me, I am Maham, and I'm the newest member of the Bisocial Canada team based out of Ontario. Enough about me, though. In this session, which we hope will keep you glued to the screen, we will be exploring something that is so central to harnessing the power of purchasing: connecting to communities. We know that municipalities across Canada have taken the charge and leveled up their commitment to social, ethical, and sustainable purchasing through social procurement. These public leaders are turning their procurement dollars into measurable and achievable benefits for their communities, whether that be aligning their municipal policy objectives to their spending to achieve large-scale community impact, or the creation of meaningful and inclusive employment opportunities for underrepresented groups. Municipalities are aiming to create purposeful and intentional positive contributions to the vibrancy of their local communities. And speaking of vibrant, I now have the pleasure of calling on our panel so they can share a bit about themselves. Colleen, could I start with you?
Absolutely, thank you. I just want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you today from the unceded territory of the Likwitwa people, and I'll just begin with a bit of context. My career spans the nonprofit, education, and business sectors in Alberta and BC, and most recently in government as a two-term elected city councillor for the city of Campbell River. Throughout these experiences, my role as executive director of national nonprofits, or vice president of the Alberta College of Art and Design, or CEO of the Campbell River Chamber of Commerce, it's really been my intention to be a collaborator and connector, and always looking for ways to bring business and nonprofits for the betterment of the community together. Moving from Calgary to Vancouver Island, I brought with me the impact from organizations like Social Venture Partners, who are working to use their business and experience to really build social impact. And it's really been a constant driver in my personal and professional life to find the people who can take an idea, build a network, and make it happen. And now as a counselor, I've been able to see firsthand how public funding and procurement can really move the connections and communities together. And it's through my role as co-chair of the Coastal Community Social Procurement Initiative that I've really been able to see and value what's been happening across our region, across Canada, to really increase the role of social procurement in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colleen, and we can't wait to hear more on that. Eduardo, you're up next.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I was not expecting to go next, but I'll go next.
Thank you.
My name is Eduardo. I have had the honor and the pleasure of working and living in 7 countries, 13 cities. The one that I chose to live on and the one where I never got transferred to was Calgary. So I'm a Calgarian by choice, not by blood. Why procurement? Because everything we wear, everything we use, where we are sitting, what we eat, drink, etc., somebody bought it. And how shocking it is that there's still in the world 4.5 million people living in a state of poverty. And for perspective, that's the size of the entire population of Alberta. And for more perspective, somebody buys stuff from those from people that are supporting that poverty and that are not doing anything to change that status of the world. So for me, making an impact through procurement, through the city that I love and the community that I chose to be my own is huge. It's a mission, it's a calling. I'm very excited to hear from my colleagues and the rest of the team here.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. And Michael?
Thanks very much, Maham, and good afternoon or good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be with you today and with my colleagues on the panel. I'm Michael Murr, the Executive Director of the Center for Social Enterprise Development. we're an intermediary, a nonprofit social enterprise intermediary. We work in the Ottawa and Eastern Ontario area. And I would say that what really has drawn me and has been a key thread through my career has been one of community building. And I think it's wonderful to be able to share the stage and to be on the at the conference here with people that I think are ultimately very socially minded and that really understand how, as David certainly speaks to very eloquently, how you can unlock additional community value that comes through social purchasing. So our work at CSED is to work with charities, nonprofits, social entrepreneurs, and we really wanted to help develop, to launch, and to scale social enterprise. And then on the demand side, to work with social purchasers in terms of helping them to integrate social enterprise into their supply chains. So as Eduardo said, very much looking forward to the conversation that we're going to be having this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you everyone for those introductions. So let's get right into the conversation. Colleen, considering you're the furthest away from me geographically, I may be new here, but I do know my maps. We would love to know more about the exciting things going on Vancouver Island.
Well, great. Well, I'll give you a real quick capture of what's happened over the last few years. And I'm going to begin in 2016 because it was in 2016 that I was part of a group of community leaders who were looking at the billions of dollars that were being spent across Vancouver Island and saying, are we really getting the value out of these public dollars that are being spent? And so that group stayed together. And then 2 years later, we developed an opportunity called a social procurement hub. And during that time, 6 governments, including where I live in Campbell River, came together and we really looked at developing a 2-year pilot project. It's unique in Canada. It's the only one that is looking that was looking at changing how procurement systems were taking place in a regional perspective. So since then, CCSPI, it's the Coastal Community Social Procurement Initiative, has grown to include 30 members. We have access to a rich library of resources, tools, professional development, training, consulting, and quality assurance support. And it's been using these tools that our CCSPI members have developed 50 pilot projects on social procurement across our region and have expended $200 million in social procurement spend by adding social value to the work that we're doing on those procurement initiatives. The whole idea of the social procurement was we recognized that a lot of the staff were really doing social procurement off the side of their desk, if in fact that was happening. And so we certainly felt that we needed to be able to have that body of resources, a body of community that would allow our social procurement staff to work together to be able to initiate those projects. I'm going to share with you also that during this time, it's really been an opportunity for change, and I'll be sharing some of the key recommendations and some of the learnings that we've had later on in our panel. Looking forward to hearing from our other presenters and looking forward to continuing the development of what's been happening with the Coastal Community Social Procurement Initiative.
Great, thank you so much, Colleen, for that. Moving on to Eduardo. So Eduardo, in the world of community and wealth building, we often hear people talk about social procurement as a handout. And I think that's something that we've talked about earlier as well. How would you respond to that?
I will respond by starting by saying that it's never a handout. It is about leveling the playing field. It is about giving the same opportunity to the providers or the suppliers that might not be as sophisticated as the global standing machinery that some suppliers have. I'll give you an example. Can I give you an example? Is that okay?
That's why you're here. That's why you're here, Eduardo. Share your knowledge with us.
In a previous life, during my career, we were interviewing or reviewing proposals for general contractors. We discovered that some of the proposals were very weak in terms of how they were worded, the format of the documents. But something told me that I needed to listen to more of the story. We brought in a couple of general contractors who had very, very neat, close relationships with the community, that did a fantastic job at a very competitive price, that everybody who had worked with them kind of gave them praise. And that's when it sparked in my mind, how do we level the field? How do I teach this contractor how to build an RFP package, how to present it, how to be refined or sophisticated enough, if that's a better word, to come and land the job that he or they actually deserve, because they do great work. They are closely tied to their community. It was a small community in Hinton, Alberta. They're employing all kinds of people, recent graduates, recent tradespeople. So how do we leverage that? So going back to your original question, it's never about a handout. It's never about just giving business to people. It's about leveling the field so that they can win this business and the next one and the next one and the next one. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, Eduardo. And if I could just follow up on that and just be like, how do you think that within the city of Calgary, kind of, you're taking charge with regards to that?
Well, we started with implementing a benefit-driven procurement questionnaire, which is our vehicle to not necessarily to completely level the field, but to start bringing awareness that we're looking into these things. The benefit-driven procurement, among other things, asks you how many jobs are you generating, if you have if you're tied with a community, if you're a startup, if you're a small medium enterprise, and we're trying to make it, let's call it mandatory, for lack of a better word, so that all our partners really look into it and really dig into it. And we're digging our heels, because I don't want it to happen, as Colleen was saying, and it's very frequent, that we're all doing it, but off the side of our desk. So this is our way of giving some rigor to the process. And
Yes.
And rigor is a boring word, but it's maybe to establish some rules on how we go about this in a structural level.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that, Eduardo. That's super helpful. And last but nearest, Michael. So I have two different questions for you. The first is that I think we have all had our eyes on the budget that came out, and we were quite pleasantly surprised to see a mention of social procurement. We would love to hear your thoughts on that. And then in addition, it would be great to hear how in Ottawa we are connecting to communities and ensuring that they are front and center moving forward with regards to social procurement.
Sure, happy to. And I guess I should say to those that are listening that I'm primarily here in terms of providing that local municipal perspective as one of the ecosystem players. But I would say that the federal government was very significant, and certainly by its 800 plus pages in and of itself, very significant. But in particular, if we think about the Investment Readiness Fund, if we think about the federal government's continuation of the social finance and social innovation strategy, I think very important announcements. So the fact that we have the additional $50 million that has been committed for 2 years through the Investment Readiness Fund program, I should say, that's going to help support the capacity development of social enterprises and to help get them ready to then be able to use social finance and to help them scale as organizations and to take advantage of larger procurement opportunities. So I think it's very significant. And with that, one of the, as I was reflecting on this conversation today, one of the themes that for me is really to say that, there is no magic bullet that when we talk about social procurement, if we talk about social enterprise and how social enterprise supports community wealth building and how social enterprise allows us to build back better, there is no single silver bullet. It takes a number of tools that have to be in the toolkit. So it's extremely important that we have a federal government that is very interested in encouraging Canada to move forward in terms of social investment and social enterprise. It's important that we have municipalities. So if I think about the city of Ottawa as a municipality, it is moving quickly to look at and how social enterprise and how social procurement can be part of their overall procurement strategy. So for an organization that has operationally $1 billion+ a year, several $billion a year in terms of capital expenditures, this is an anchor institution that as a community plays a tremendous role, a very significant role, and by its actions, both at a policy level as well as a program level, those actions and that direction and the tone that it helps to set for the city and for other organizations in the city, very significant. So I'm certainly, again, welcoming this conversation. I think one of the things that we're also very, that I'm very pleased to see is really community grassroots organizations that are coming together and advocating for change and advocating for social enterprise and social procurement to be a more significant part of that solution. So the Ottawa Community Benefit Coalition, and I'll give a shout out to Martin Adelaire, who is really the initial instigator. It is now 33 organizations strong. It has really rallied organizations that come from social community organizations, housing, labor, and other organizations, all with that express purpose of advocating for and being a strong partner in creating community benefit outcomes from the large infrastructure opportunities that are ahead of us. So really important things happening, and I think it's really helpful that we're moving in this direction.
Great, thank you so much, Michael. And I think kind of one of the takeaways from your conversation was that the importance of kind of embedding social procurement within that process early on, as opposed to it just being an add-on in the process later on. And I think that's kind of like a key. So Colleen, we have a question for you. And it's around kind of, could you provide us with perhaps a specific example, that you've had in the last few years, how you've kind of embedded social procurement, and kind of how that has then brought about impact or change within the communities that you're working in?
Absolutely. So I think what the challenge has been, and both Michael and Eduardo have certainly spoken to it, is that oftentimes what happens is the leadership, whether it's elected officials or whether it's senior leadership within the municipality, unless there's support from both sides, this isn't going to happen effectively. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we've seen. And so just picking up on the point of doing these off the side of your desk, it's not for lack of interest that the social procurement staff want to be involved. They see the benefit, they see the value, but it's really required a shift in thinking. And it's required a shift that councils and elected officials are willing to move forward with a policy that clearly outlines the commitment to social procurement. Without that policy in place, and we certainly, through CCSPI, developed great examples of effective policies, and those certainly are shared with all of our members. But without that policy in place, it really doesn't allow for staff to commit time and resources to move social procurement forward. So with a lot of our members, now that they have embedded that policy within their policy documents, and we have the support of elected officials, now that's really given permission for staff to invest time and resources to move social procurement forward. So I think policy was key. It constantly comes back to measuring what is the impact of social procurement. And so we've established a partnership with the Royal Roads University, and we're developing a measurement framework. I think that also has been key. And also developing a language that resonates with the supplier industry. So that when we're talking about social procurement, we have a common language. I think that's been extremely important in the development work that we've done. And I think between our membership, our community of practice, discussing these things and having actual pilot projects and case studies to review together, it's really helped drive it forward. To have 30 members that have embedded social procurement on Vancouver Island and our coastal communities, again, $200 million in the impact of that. We now have a group of champions that are really increasing awareness, I think, of what the impact of social procurement can be. And sharing those case studies and sharing that those resources has been key to moving it forward in our community, for sure.
Thank you so much for that, Colleen. And I'm so sorry, Michael.
Yeah, Maham, can I just build on Colleen's remarks? If I think of in Ottawa, and I think of the City of Ottawa, recently Council passed unanimously a motion that is directing the Chief Procurement Officer to find ways to incorporate social procurement and social enterprise into the supply mix. So, that's a significant direction by Council. The fact that it was truly unanimous. Council understands, I think, sees the benefit of social procurement, of shifting that social procurement, particularly in terms of coming out of COVID. And with that, the city has a Chief Procurement Officer and procurement unit that is, that really understands that expanded value of best value. So as David, as By Social talks about, it's certainly much more than performance and cost, right? It is that broader sense of the benefits that are going to be accruing from that spend. I think with that, policy and that strong policy directive is important, but it's not enough in and of itself. And so we do have, cases where a policy has been approved, but very little then happens in terms of actual on-the-ground movement. So I think complementing a strong policy directive, that enabling policy, making that complement so that you have specific tools in the toolkit that are going to make it easy for social enterprises to engage with the city, with other anchor institutions. And I'll just give you two examples of that. One would be direct awards. So making sure that you put in place the capability for the municipality to be able to provide a direct award to a social enterprise as a way to build capacity, right, and to test those approaches. And secondly, I think the use of pilots. And it's so important to find ways to see those early pilots. And if I could just give you an example of that, we've been very fortunate in the city to have some anchor institutions, and I'm going to say the Ottawa Community Foundation, and Marco Pagani, the president, who I think has been in this position where he's been able to see opportunities in the community. And it was through I think, a conversation with the Ottawa Community Housing and the city, where they saw an opportunity to meet a need for Ottawa community housing by working with the Ottawa Somali Family Services Center. And as a result of that opportunity, a social enterprise was created, and it started with litter pickup and flyer delivery. It was done as a way to provide a service to Ottawa community housing, but to do it in a way that the people that would be providing that service were in fact residents of Ottawa community housing neighborhoods and the Somali community specifically. That early intervention that created that initial pilot has since grown to the point where DALO and DALO Property Management, as it's known, DALO Property Maintenance, is now to the point where they have taken on direct contracts for the City of Ottawa. And in fact, they moved beyond simply those pilots direct awards, and they've now been able to successfully bid on other projects. So I think the use of pilots, direct awards are key tools that have to be in the toolbox.
Amazing, Michael. Thank you so much for that. And if I could I'm just going to jump back to something that you said, that policy is great, all of that is great, but like, what is that kind of additional piece that we need? And then Colleen, tying that into your point of a common language, I'd like to use that as a segue into the final part of our conversation, which is, where do you see things going in the next 3 years, and what are key recommendations? And I would, Eduardo, if I could begin with you, and if you could just also kind of provide a little bit about that change management piece. That policy and all of that is amazing, but for example, at the City of Calgary, at a municipal level, how important it is to kind of embed that entire change management piece to ensure that these projects are successful. And everyone, this is a rapid fire round, so everyone gets a minute.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'll start with the part of the change management. The change management is crucial, and if you don't tie all your loose ends, somebody else is going to tie them for you, or not. And if you let them loose, the initiatives, no matter the policy, no matter what you have in place, just fall off the cliff. So it's crucial. As how I see the future, I go back to my point of leveling the field. I think that our next step for the next 3 years, for the next 5 years, is finding how we empower and we enable these providers that today are very small to become larger, to become medium, to become big, to become successful. And I think we have a lot of education to give them. I think we have a lot of resources now that everybody's transforming into the digital capabilities, putting things online, making our RFPs more friendly, making them more automated, etc. I think the future is not sound like a slogan, but I think the future is very bright, and I'm very excited for it.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. Great, thank you so much. Colleen, would you like to add to that?
Absolutely. Great discussion. And what I would say is it's great to have 50 pilot projects that CCSPI has put forward, but if you don't have any of the suppliers bidding on those projects, if you don't have any delivery models through social enterprise, that's a challenge. And so certainly this is the learning that we've seen over the last couple of years. We're actually developing a supplier directory, a social value supplier directory, which I think is key to enabling social enterprises and organizations, vendors that actually have embedded social value into their businesses are going to be able to rise to the top to allow for, when RFPs go out, to allow for more awareness around who potentially would be bidding on those contracts because they already have embraced social value, and that we are aware of the social enterprises that are able to implement the value that is being created, the community benefit that's being created through those RFPs. I think that's been a great challenge for us. Nothing more discouraging than putting an RFP out there with social procurement embedded in it and not having any bidders bidding on those opportunities because they themselves have not embedded social value into their organizations and businesses. So that's been a key focus that we've had. And I think it speaks to the fact that we recognize it's a supply and demand. We certainly are consuming opportunities to really build social enterprises in our community and value the nonprofits. But again, it's about the business infrastructure. And so the training that we've been doing, the outreach and the training that we've been doing, we recognize it has to be community driven. So businesses across communities and across the coastal communities have been holding these workshops, inviting developers and contractors to come in and learn more about what it means to embed social value into their RFP responses has been key. And so what we've seen is a constant increase in the number of people that are bidding on these contracts. And we've also, I think through our social procurement staff, have recognized that we can deconstruct these large RFPs. And that has made a real difference as well. Sometimes you just have to start small, catering, or a part of a large proposal. You don't have to do the whole thing. And I think that has really shown through our pilot projects and the community of learning that it's taken away the risk that a lot of our procurement staff had. They were uncomfortable moving forward if they thought the risk was too high. And by deconstructing these large infrastructure proposals, it's really allowed them to start small, build the confidence, really understand building the relationships with the supplier community. It's had a huge impact. We're really excited about moving forward because I think we have that foundation now and that framework in place. And certainly Vancouver Island coastal communities, now when we say social procurement, they're not like, huh? What? They actually get it now. And I just have to really emphasize how critical it was and how supportive I am of the procurement staff, the CFOs within our municipalities and our councils that collectively are working in partnership to move social procurement forward. It truly is a collaborative, you have to have the collaboration in place. And I'd finally just like to say that we've had the support of the BC, province all the way along. They've been an observer throughout this process. And again, that's just been key to have all levels of government on board for this. So.
Thank you so much, Colleen. And to add on to that piece about knowledge, I think that just creating that information, having that knowledge out there and sharing it is so key to our social procurement projects and programs actually being able to go forward, because I think a lot of it, it is approached from a place of either misinformation or no information. And, and I think that's such a key role that municipalities play in kind of, communicating that message or providing that information. Michael, would you have anything to add to that about that knowledge piece?
Absolutely. I want to pick up on, I think from a city procurement perspective, or procurement officers generally, I think there is that genuine interest in broadening the supplier pool, working to maximize the benefits that are accruing from a given expenditure. And so I think just picking up on some of Colleen's comments in terms of one of the great roles that community organizations can play. So if I think of CSID in our case, we can help make sure that social buyers that are in the community, they have a way to find social enterprises. And so you can make it easy then to match and to link social enterprise suppliers with that demand that's coming from anchor institutions and others. I think one of the things that gives me a lot of optimism for the future is what comes through the power of intentionality. And in Ottawa, we have a community interest that through the Ottawa Community Benefits Coalition that started working with what will be the new City of Ottawa Central Library and Archives Canada joint facility. Big word, big title, but in essence, it will be a new 220,000 square foot facility. It will expect to have 1.7 million visitors a year. And through early conversations with the project team, there was an interest by the project team to say, how can we embed social enterprise into the operation? And what this has led to is a very intentional decision to work together to say, let's find a way to have social enterprise provide the food services in the building. And so you can imagine that in terms of a highly visible role, this is a phenomenal opportunity for social enterprise to play that, food service role. And so I'm very, very excited and optimistic. And I think with that, knowing that your organization, your communities have organizations that are those standard bearers that are helping to wave the flag in terms of social procurement and social enterprise. That is CSID, that is the Ottawa United Way, East Ottawa, the Ottawa Community Foundation, and many others that really, I think, will help to galvanize the community and say, this is absolutely the right direction, and we need to do even more of it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Michael. And I think, so much of the conversation that we're having today is forward-looking. It is optimistic. So, I think I'd like to kind of end on this question of, in the next 10 years, what is that, like those key 2-3 pieces of advice that you'd like to give other municipalities, like in the decade ahead, that you think would kind of really, really lead to, the success of social procurement program and projects and maximum community impact moving forward? And Eduardo, could I start that discussion with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about the answer. I think that my first advice would be get started. Because sometimes in our case, the municipalities, sometimes getting the wheel to start turning takes a little bit or a lot. And as my peers have communicated here, there's a huge change management commitment. There's a huge you cannot please everybody, so a lot of stakeholders take it. So what I would tell other municipalities in Canada or the world is get started, get piloting, try one, fail one, make mistakes, change, iterate. That would be my biggest mistake, because if you never get started, or if you're waiting for it to be perfect, it's going to exceed you, and the social benefits that we could have achieved are gone, because we're on a clock here to make the world better, to make our communities better. So get started. There's nothing is going to go wrong.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Eduardo. And just in the interest of time, Michael, could we get one from you, and Colleen, one from you?
Sure. I think for municipalities, I think, use every tool in the toolkit. And as Eduardo said, don't be afraid of trying it, of piloting it. I think also celebrating your success. It is a long road. It's not going to happen overnight, but celebrate those successes as you're going. And I think find ways to find those opportunities. So we helped the City of Ottawa do a spend analysis of 3 departments where we helped them understand what their current expenditure was and what could potentially be to move to a social enterprise supplier. And I think that gave them an early understanding of some of the potential opportunities.
Thank you so much, Michael. And Colleen, sorry that we're rushing you the last 60 seconds.
I don't want to repeat what the other panelists have said, so I'll say 2 quick ones. One is, don't worry about the size of your, whether you're a town, a community, a municipality. Social procurement works for every community, regardless of size. And the second thing I would say is reach out to the network, do the myth busting, take advantage of the education and opportunities that are out there. Buy Social Canada, CCSPI, Coastal Community Social Procurement. We all have resources that help break down those myths around social procurement. And I think that is key. Get going, but make sure that the education is there.
Thank you so much, Colleen, Michael, and Eduardo, for sharing these stories and for taking us along on your community-centered journeys of vibrancy and hope, impact, and change. We can't wait to see what's in store for social procurement and municipalities moving forward. And finally, Eduardo, I'm going to pick on you again. Could you quickly pick a number between 1 and 200?
5.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Eduardo. 5 will be the lucky winner from our participants who will be getting a copy of David LePage's Marketplace Revolution. So thank you so much again. A big thank you to everyone who's been a part of this session, and back to Tori.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Great to hear from you and all the wonderful things your municipalities are doing. So let's see, who is that number 5 winner? Yvette Hawks. Yvette Hawks, great, congratulations. You get a copy. And if anyone else is looking for a copy of Buy Social Canada and David LePage's book, Marketplace Revolution, you get a discount, 50% discount code if you enter the code Symposium15, and we'll share the website in the chat. So I encourage you to order a copy for yourself, order a copy for your friends. It's available in audiobook, ebook, and print. So next up today, we have the session. Yep. Bye, everyone. You can log off.
Thank you, Tori.
The next session will be Myths and Facts, and that's going to be hosted by Biosocial Canada's Executive Director, Elizabeth Chick-Blount. So we'll close the screen, get everyone's audio and visual set up, and then we'll be back live. Actually, sorry, we're having a quick break. So we'll be back in 4 minutes at 30 minutes after the hour. So run to the bathroom, grab a snack, and we'll see you soon.